published their article or study, as it's been reported since, claiming that it's possible that 180,000 or so people have died in Gaza. Now they've released another report or another study where they say it's 64,260 likely dead instead of the estimated 37,877. So basically, Hamas is underestimating the numbers as the Lancet has claimed before, but now they're claiming they're underestimating current numbers. And when you look into the methodology here, you see that the Lancet is sticking to their approach that is divorced from reality. We're going to talk about why that is and what exactly it is that they did. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, your initial thoughts on this study.
Yeah, well, sort of here are the general things you're gonna hear in this episode. We can go into how they made this study, and I think there are some problems coming from it. But sort of in a bigger picture, as soon as this study was published, many news sites jumped on it, and sort of the only thing you're supposed to take away is the actual number. That's the only thing people will take away. That's the only thing people took away from that Lancet article we discussed, last time, I think like 7 months ago, or when it was originally published. Basically, they just take the number. They don't have any context for it. They don't know why it is. And it is now being used as like, that's the number. That's the number you just have to work with. So, yeah, and sort of even I would even discuss the I think the biases or not the biases necessarily, but sort of what was the intention of this article or of this study, because at the end, at the conclusion, they say, well, with these numbers, there is a even higher need for humanitarian aid, for ceasefire. So the sort of intention was I think sort of clear from the start, because again, let's say the methodology they used, we can discuss it, but let's say if it came out that the number is actually lower than what it is right now, would they say, oh, actually it's not that bad, we don't need a humanitarian we don't need like a ceasefire, we can continue getting rid of Hamas? It's no, it whatever the number was, they would still I mean again, it's like 60, or what was it, 63,000 or 64,000? Is it like a magical, like if it was under 60,000 it would be okay, we understand that there will be casualties, but Israel needs to like go into Gaza, so these numbers are not higher than we would expect in this situation. No, it's Oh, just quickly, because someone said you were correct. The biases. I think in the last like a week or so, the idea of bias was like a big thing, because when people say bias, or that we have a bias, or that international organizations shouldn't have a bias, what they actually mean, they use it as a package deal. What they actually mean, we have a bias, meaning we are pro-Western. We have principles to judge things by. We don't look at, as in the study was found that, or in the study it was written that Lancet looks at Israel and Palestine as a neutral. That's not good. Having, in a sense, no bias in this sense is not a good thing. You should have principles. You should have sort of some standard that you are judging a situation by. You cannot look at something with no values, as if I'm just looking at it with what? What are you gonna find?
Yeah, and of course, if you are putting your resources into a study estimating the number of deaths in Gaza, you are taking a side because it doesn't matter. The actual number doesn't matter. But the reason it's being pushed is because people look at it as, okay, the number is higher for one side, the death toll is higher for one side, therefore the other side is to blame. Now, they didn't say this after October 7th when the death toll was all on one side. But yeah, they're saying it when Israel is responding. But so the Lancet is very much biased. But it's biased in that it takes as its starting point. We're going to talk about the method a little bit, but its starting point with that method is Hamas numbers, which it takes unquestioningly. So let's read a bit of this article. Now, this is a Telegraph article about the Lancet study. We will, I assume, do more than one show about this week. or in the coming week, because again, the Lancet is highly regarded, and therefore this is one more example of the experts that the pro-Palestinian side will tell you are showing that this is a genocide, which of course it doesn't show, even if these numbers are correct or the 180,000 number is correct. But anyway, okay, so the article in the Telegraph goes, the number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip is more than 40% higher than previously reported, according to a new study published in the Lancet. The authors estimate that some 64,260 people are likely to have died as a result of trauma between the 7th of October 2023 and the 30th of June 2024, a 41% increase on the 37,877 deaths estimated by the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza. That's the end of that paragraph, by the way. This is the Telegraph, which, the Guardian is consistently on one side of things. The Telegraph has some great stuff and has some stuff like this. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza is, of course, Hamas, but that isn't mentioned even as an afterthought. The article continues, the figures calculated by researchers at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine only account for, quote, traumatic deaths and do not include deaths resulting from food insecurity and starvation, health service disruption, and inadequate water and sanitation. Okay, let's pause there, because it's I'll leave aside the who is doing the study, but it's doesn't include deaths resulting from food insecurity and starvation. Brings us to what the main question here that isn't being asked is, which is who's responsible for this? If this is all true, who's responsible for this? And we know who's responsible for any starvation that there might be, and we haven't actually seen much of it or any actual evidence of it. It is Hamas. Hamas, unfortunately, still controls where most of the population is. Hamas is in power, and this is a failure of Israel, focusing too much on protecting so-called innocent civilians on the Palestinian side. And the cost of that is not just deaths of Israeli soldiers, but also Hamas stays in power and can say to the world, look, we remain in power even when the mighty Israel is coming after us. But yeah, so everything taken in this Lancet article starts at a starting point of Israel's to blame for everything. Hamas, as the representative of the Palestinians, is the victim.
Yeah, I mean, well, first, in the Telegraph, it mentioned the Gaza Health Ministry, and I think I've recently seen an article in. I'm trying to think if it was Times of Israel, but it was written something like, Hamas claims X amount of numbers, and in the article itself, like right in the first sentence, it says this is from Hamas. Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry, and we cannot verify these numbers in any way. And I think I found that like that should be as close as these numbers should ever be reported to sort of be in any way factual, basically saying, yeah, it's a number they give us and we cannot do anything with it. But this study is doing something with it. I'm wondering, do you want me to go into basically the methodology they used and
Sure. Although I did think that might be a topic for a future episode as well, but I do think we need to talk about it a little bit, because the whole thing, just looks wrong right away, and should be looked at as wrong. But again, we always say these people know their audience, so the audience will overlook the things that aren't really making sense if they make Israel look bad.
Yeah, so I needed like an hour or two just to understand basically what is the methodology used. Again, I'm not someone who has like any background in this, but from my understanding, they used the so-called capture-recapture analysis method, and these methods were used in the past and generally are pretty reliable. But I'll talk more about where this method can go wrong. Basically, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, this study is from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and they had the numbers from October 7th, 2023 until June 30th, 2024. Now, basically, the way this method works is you take numbers from different sources. So they have numbers from hospital reports, social media, and surveys. What you do with that is you look for percentage of basically reports that or sort of where let's say someone died and he is reported in, let's say, in the hospital, but is not reported on the survey. And you put it into one thing. Basically, you try to how many people are reported in all of them, how many people are reported in just the two of them, how many people are reported in just one of them. And based on that, you have
Yeah, I'll let you continue. I just want to say that the sources they're using are the Palestinian Ministry of Health hospital morgue records, and the Palestinian Ministry of Health online survey and social media obituaries. So it is all coming from Hamas.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so you have these numbers, and then you have the percentage of which are not reported by others, and based on that, you can come out with the number of, well, if there are some people which are only reported by one organization or by two organizations, that there have to be people which are not reported at all, that have basically we miss them, basically all of them miss them at once, and so that's where I think the 40% more that comes from. Basically, if you put it all together, you come out with the 64,000 number. Now, where can this go wrong? Well, one, this is all, as you mentioned, numbers from Hamas. If you don't like the methodology is correct. If you have the actual numbers, if you use the methodology properly, you'll get the pretty good estimate of what it can be. Basically, it's the methodology of coming out with information when you don't have the full information. Even lack of information can give you an idea about what's really happening. I mean, an example of this, if people know the survivorship bias, the story about basically a World War II plane comes into like harbor, and basically they check where it has like bullets from. And based on that information, they're trying to come up with where should they put more armor in. But the fact is, they don't have the full information because they don't have the planes that have fallen. So based on that, you can come out with more information. Now, basically, what that happens is, do you want to say something? Because I want to go a bit more into uh, yeah, so the biggest problem is you have to trust the numbers. You have to trust the starting numbers. If those are wrong, you cannot really do anything, or you cannot judge the final product in any way. But again, what people only look at is the final number. They don't look where are the original numbers from, and how should we really think about these numbers. Um, Anything to add before I go on?
Um, yes, I was hoping to add something, but I only found it in audio form. But Leonard Peikoff's comments on statistics, I'll keep looking them up. Yeah, uh, uh, whether or not that method is actually valid when you're dealing with death toll numbers, again, there's a question of why are we even trying to do this during a war that the side that started doesn't want to end. Once they they've surrendered, we can then count the actual bodies, and it doesn't matter. It's up to them to surrender and end the war. But yeah, I can see the method being a problematic thing when you're talking about actual humans being alive or dead. That's a and you could never apply that on an individual basis. So it's a problematic. I think the method is problematic, but of course, it doesn't matter if the method is problematic if all your sources are Hamas. Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, paying you guys to be biased towards reason, reality, and justice. Thank you. We do that for free, but we enjoy getting paid for it even more. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Daniel.
People are talking about the methodology. As I mentioned, this was used in the past and in different wars and has been generally reliable. But again, in the past, the numbers I think that we were getting from were generally more reliable. And I think, as I always say, the data itself, the numbers themselves can tell you a lot. I mean, the first episode we did about the Hamas numbers, they had to change how they report it because you could find out a lot about numbers such as people raising from the dead because they were reporting specifically women and children dying, and then the numbers from one day to the other didn't fit unless 5 men were resurrected. so going more into the numbers, so the biggest problems you could find even here is the number of people we got from again the hospitals themselves is much bigger than the numbers we got from the social media and surveys, which can skew the numbers a lot. Then also, hospitals reported much less uh, deaths of men than surveys and social media. So even this sort of doesn't fit. Like, why is one methodology giving us much less men than the other one? And also, something that I found really interesting is that hospitals reported much less. Basically, if you check all the age groups of how every methodology uses, with the hospitals, it goes down with age. So basically, the older you are, the much less of those people proportionally died based on the hospital records. But based on surveys and social media reports, military age men died much more than any other group. So again, now my biggest problem is like if let's say or like five, even like 1,000, but let's say 5 or 10,000 were just over-reported in the hospital records, it can skew the number insanely. So again, like that's sort of like the biggest. And now we're only again we're only talking about methodology. We can go much further into again what was the point of this study, what was the goal, and how are people going to use it.
Yeah, and that is a question when it comes to the percentage of deaths that are women and children. We'll get to that in the article, but the next paragraph is at least 10,000 unrecovered corpses are thought to be buried under the rubble in Gaza. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported in May last year. Now,
Yeah, just
this is
quickly, you know what my favorite thing about that reported? I tried to find out where the number was from. I found it on the website and it just said, we report 10,000 numbers and it listed some like Palestinian group. And it's like, well, thank you. What is this? Yeah, we're reporting the numbers. Well, thanks.
But you did something that 99.999% of people looking at that statistic won't do, and that's what they're counting on. That's the thing. The UN knows that people aren't gonna, the people who support the Palestinians are never gonna question anything coming out of the UN. So yeah, this is such a, just the way it's written. It's really disturbing. At least 10,000 corpses are thought to be buried under the rubble. And yeah, so you have zero evidence for this. Unfortunately, Israel does this thing where they tell people before they bomb. So the likelihood of these numbers being correct, I think, is very low. But again, doesn't matter anyway. But they are making up numbers as part of their case. And the next paragraph is more than half of deaths, 59%, estimated by the researchers, occurred among women, children, and the elderly. The study said even that is, if true, puts Israel in a great light. It's a very, very low percentage. Of course, children are men of fighting age in some cases. Women
Yeah, I
are
mean,
also.
yeah, Hamas qualifies anyone under the age of 18 as children, which we know Hamas has been, and also Hamas has been using women as, or not even using as women. Women are part of Hamas. This is not like some, uh, yeah. It-
Yeah, women, the elder. I mean, yeah, it sort of assumes certain things that don't really fit the original narrative of the side the Lancet is taken. But yeah, don't fit also what we're supposed to think of the Palestinians as these victims of the Jews going and killing, like targeting women and children. And no, that's not what comes out of this clearly anti-Israel propaganda study. So
Um, yeah, and well, reading from the study again, what was the goal? I think it was in the conclusion at the end. They say our findings highlight the urgent need for expanded humanitarian access to all of the Gaza Strip and protection of healthcare personnel, ambulances, and static health facilities, so that people with traumatic injuries can access timely and appropriate care, thereby reducing case fatality. So again, like if the number was lower, would they not call it? Like whenever people talk about the numbers, they always sort of the underlying assumption is that it's too much. It's just too many people. We just have to stop it. And my question always is, what is the number? What is the number when it's okay for what Israel is doing? I mean, even according to these numbers, even either the hospital reports or the social media and survey reports, 60 to 7% of people that die are men. So that would sort of at least assume that Israel is successfully targeting Hamas, is successfully, and also military age men specifically. So Israel is successfully targeting Hamas militants. So is this number too much? Yeah, like what's the number that would be too little? That's why I think sometimes we have people in the chat. I mean, on the thumbnail it says Israeli Hasbara. Maybe I said it right this time, and it's like yeah, maybe there are some people who could be convinced by just explaining what's really going on, but that's clearly not it for most of the people. It's clearly that Israel cannot do any right. There is nothing that Israel can do to sort of satisfy the expectations. Israel is wrong by almost like by nature intrinsically, and so we just whatever study methodology, whatever we can do to sort of make the case better, yeah, then we just use it. And we know that people will jump on it. Again, even if these people didn't, their purpose wasn't to basically create more propaganda that people can use, this is how it will be used. Because again, I think it's, when I looked into the study and how it was used in the past, because I like numbers, it is like really interesting about like finding for more information with the lack of information. But this was clearly not the goal here. It was just, we have this one thing we can use against Israel, and people will jump on it.
Yeah, I mean, the question of their motives, I think, is gone after the fact that this is the second time they've done this, and they saw that it worked the first time. They threw out a number out there, 180,000, 86,000, which, again, was as baseless as what they're doing now, and it worked. And people said, look, even the experts at the Lancet said. So I don't know if I want to say to the credit of the Telegraph, but there is later on in the article, there's a segment titled Death Toll Questions, and it reads, there have been widespread questions surrounding the reliability of official mortality data in the Gaza Strip since October 2023, and there are a wide range of estimates. I have to say it's interesting that they say October 2023, which is when the Palestinians started the war. They're not saying that this is more specifically since the 17th of October 2023, when the Palestinians bombed a parking lot of their own hospital, and it was widely reported, taking Hamas's word without question that Israel bombed the hospital and that 500 people were
Yeah,
killed. You would
and
think,
that
yeah,
number is still included in the actual casualties, by the way.
that does not surprise me. And you would think at that point, um, news media would say this is not a source of information that we can take seriously ever, because they might not know immediately that it's one of their rockets and it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad and not Hamas. So maybe they weren't coordinated, but they just said something without knowing it. But again, the media seems to be priding itself on doing that. We talked about Jeremy Bowen, who said something to that effect when asked about questioned about the fact that he's using Hamas numbers in BBC coverage. He says, "Well, these are the only numbers we have. What do you expect us to do? Not report anything?" So yeah, that's the approach, or that's the excuse of the people who are pushing forward the propaganda of the people who started this war by slaughtering 1,200 innocent people. Later in the article, it says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the BBC that around 30,000 people had been killed in Gaza by May 2024, with 14,000 of them being, quote, terrorists. Again, if I look at that, the only thing that bothers me is how is it possible that after October 7th and until May 2024, you only managed to kill 14,000 terrorists? But this is not, of course, this is not going to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, except for this channel. So Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, what else is that? Well, one thing I mentioned in the study itself, it also mentions the original Lancet number, the 186,000. And I love how that number is used because it sort of I'm trying to. I'm sure there is a concept for it, but it's basically like a completely out of context, even like quoting or sort of like not understanding, not knowing how to apply knowledge, because repeating the number doesn't make sense because the number should be much higher now. That number, how they came out with that number was they took the number of casualties at the time, which was I don't know 34,000 or something, and they multiplied it by four. So the number should be more like 240,000 at this point. But again, no one knows about where this number came from. No one knows what was the methodology being used. No one cares because the only thing they need is a big number. We have a new big number we can show. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
somebody in the
mean,
chat says Gaza alien, which is I think the correct number of thank you, Alex, for the super chat. Alex says you guys are genocidal, 5 trillion deaths in Gaza. Well, the thing is, yeah, even the people who say genocide then read out numbers that don't really amount to that, but we've done shows on the definition of genocide.
yeah,
So
I think in the study itself, like even with this new number, it would mean 3% of the people died in Gaza after a year. That's this genocide is gonna take a long time. Like look at the
I have to
actual
say,
yeah
Hamas's estimates about the population in
yeah
Gaza is
yeah
also what we have in terms of what we know of how many people. So I'm sure it's not 2 million people. I don't know if it's a million, if it's 1.5, if it's less than a million. It's another one of those things that we don't know. But yeah, you mentioned that they mentioned the previous figure of 186,000 in the Telegraph article. This is the paragraph in which it's mentioned. When both trauma and non-trauma deaths are taken into account, some academic estimates suggest the final death toll could reach 186,000. That's the entire mention of it in this article that is about a Lancet study and doesn't tell you that this previous estimate is also from the Lancet. If you click, if you're reading this on a device rather than in a newspaper, you can click academic estimates, and then when you click it, it sends you to the Lancet. Surprisingly, so yeah, it's you know, I don't know. These people aren't really trying as hard as they used to because they see they can get away with it quite easily.
yeah. I mean, again, what you're gonna do? That's why like really looking into stuff is like so important because you can report a lot of stuff and. I mean, even when we get to like sort of this amount of like experts claim X, I'm starting to consider is this like pretty much almost lying? Is this like actually not even at the extent of um, because again the purpose of media should be not only to report, not only to give information, but also put things into context. Again, I had to spend a few hours reading through the study, reading through understanding the method, and I'm someone who already has some some basis in the numbers. I used to study math, so I have some at least basis to even understand this. Now imagine if you're just someone who just like reads the news, just like goes through the headlines or goes through some of the articles, and you just read the article, and what are you supposed to take away? You're supposed to take away the 64,000 number or whatever, and also the 186,000 number maybe. So again, I love mainstream media, but this is not cool. Like we need media to report on stuff. I cannot go into Gaza and like collect stuff on my own. I need to rely to some extent on media. But when it gets to this point, when it gets to this amount of basically really out of context reporting, I think it's really problematic. And I think that's why many people are sort of put away by the mainstream media is because whenever they look into anything, they realize, well, it's not really how they're saying it is. And that's really problematic.
Yeah, I don't know if you have these in Slovakia that people, scam text you and stuff and try to pretend that they're, some company or something that you might be doing business with. And one thing you will usually find in those scam texts is some sort of spelling error or, misplaced comma or something. And that's done intentionally to see if, you're gullible enough to follow up. And then they know, okay, this is a good target. And I think this is pretty much what the anti-Israel media is doing with pushing these numbers originally, with coming up with these studies that are based on the people who are the word of the people who launched this war, and it works. So yeah, the people in the media who are doing this are dishonest, but so are the people who just see a headline or see a number posted somewhere and think, oh, that's a lot of number. Is a lot of people. Israel is killing so many people. I'm going to go and spend Saturday blocking the roads in London and chanting Free Palestine. And you haven't done the research into the pro-Hamas movement to know that you're calling for the extermination of the Jews. You're still guilty. You still have a choice of what to do with your mind and what to do with your time, and you've chosen to uh, take something as gospel and follow it with activism. So yeah, the media doing this is absolutely evil, but the people who buy into it are as well.
Do you wanna read the super chat?
Yes. Thank you. The new Bronze Age collapse. The new Bronze Age collapse says, out of topic question, how can I reach out to Razi to discuss the wind farm topic I opened last time? I got some updates. Thanks in advance. Daniel, if you can post the link to the website where you can contact us from the contact form. I'm trying to remember what it is, but I'm not going to try. I'll just wait for your email. Um, yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, not much else to say. Just to wrap up. Again, this study uses, I think, generally a good methodology to come out with numbers in war-related aspects. But what every methodology relies on is how much you can trust the original numbers. And when it comes to this, we went over. I think there's so much things that can be wrong, so much things that can be misreported, that there is no way the actual number is being afflicted in a major sense. And now, also, my big question would be if, let's say, the numbers, because again, if even with this methodology, you can basically come out with the answer that the number is only maybe 1,000 higher than what it is actually here. And my question would be, would we see the study published if the number was, much lower than maybe they were hoping for? And again, if my question is, if it was just 1,000, if the only people that died, we don't even have to go there, because we did cover the pager attack. That was the most impressive operation, the most when it comes to civilian sort of bystander casualties. That was the most impressive operation in like history of mankind, and that was too much. That was breaking of international law. That was being too. That was going too much towards. There were too many civilian casualties there. So again, like there is nothing Israel can do. So sort of trying to explain it, I only looked into it because it's fun for me, but there is no more information you should gain from the fact that I was able to explain to you how this worked. This basically, the way you judge these numbers should be the same. Again, it's on Hamas. This should be a bigger point against Hamas than Israel, because Hamas has actually caused even more deaths than we were expecting by starting this war, or that we suppose, I guess.
Um, yeah, I had a point to make that I forgot, so I will thank Alex for the super chat. Alex says, Russia says only a few thousand died in their special military operation. Where's their Lancet article? I'm sure it's coming any day now. I don't know. Some people on the anti-Israel crowd are for some reason pro-Ukraine. Clearly, they haven't thought the issues enough and gotten to the fundamentals. But yeah, I'm wondering, Daniel, if we can use the capture-recapture method on our super chats and make today's super chats $186,000. But you know, if we can't do that, then we're in a sense much better than the Lancet, and we are in every sense better than the Lancet. I believe we have somebody else who has something to say about this, Daniel.
Sure, let's go directly from the scene of the crime, I guess.
Tom, I'm currently 10 miles outside of Beaverton, unable to get inside the town proper. We do not have any reports of fatalities yet, but we believe that the death toll may be in the hundreds of millions. Beaverton has only a population of about 8,000, Tom, so this would be quite devastating. Any word on how the survivors in the town are doing, Mitch? We're not sure what exactly is going on inside the town of Beaverton, Tom, but we're reporting that there's looting, raping, and yes, even acts of cannibalism. My God, you've actually seen people looting, raping, and eating each other. No, we haven't actually seen it, Tom. We're just reporting it.
And so is the Lancet. They haven't seen it, they're just reporting it. And they continue to provide material for us. So, Daniel, parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what is the name of the of the guy on the clip. The boy.
Who?
So the one with the blue hat.
In
It's
South
not
Park.
Kyle. What?
Stan?
Stan. Okay. I think it was really it's also interesting to see how he was like horrified when he was watching that while his mother and his sister were sort of just eating and looking at it.
Well, he was also horrified because he was responsible, but that's you have to watch the whole episode for that. So,
Okay, that it makes sort of different point, but I think it sort of like speaks about again, try to imagine if people who claim this, let's say this number currently according to Lancet could be again, the methodology they used for the number can be anything from 1 to 15. There is a chance that all people in Gaza are dead according to like that number, and then some, and then like a million more. So again, the fact that people can like report these numbers, can like say, okay, 200,000 can be can be dead, and do not have any like inkling of like, wait, 200,000 people died in Gaza. That it sort of doesn't fit. It like that seems too much. That seems like like with what I know so far, it like seems to go against reality. But thankfully, going against reality didn't stop anyone from pushing their ideas.
yeah. And we show that clip all the time when we talk about how people report, but I wonder if they show that clip in journalism school and say this is how you do it. Because it does seem that way. Um, anyway, I think we've covered this as much as we can for today. It's possible that we're going to keep an eye on how much this is used in coming days as more proof of how horrible Israel is. And there's other things in the news that we're going to cover in the next couple of days. So make sure you stick around. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with the Daily Objective.